wasn't kidding. It's a lot, Ubisoft. Holy shit. It's a lot. Holy moly. Alright, so the TTS goes live tomorrow, which means here is the patch notes for Blood Orchid. And if you saw the opening, that's a lot of bug fixes. I will leave a link to this in the description down below, and you guys can read them all, looking for whichever one you want. But there's a ton of them in there. I want to touch on something, though, that I missed during the panel, and that is this right here. So, I've put up a couple things on the technical test servers testing the new servers, which sounds great. It's got a slightly faster tick rate, went from 50 to 60 hertz. And the game does feel better and more responsive, and the super big peakers advantage has been reduced. It's still there a little bit, but it's not nearly as bad. Or at least in the brief time that I've had to experience, it wasn't nearly as bad. However, they said this during the panel, and I missed it because I wasn't paying 100% attention, but the new servers are coming to PC, at least, with this patch. So Operation Blood Orchid will be the implementation of the new servers. Now, if you didn't catch that in the panel like me, this is a bit of a surprise. I didn't know it was going to happen this fast. I mean, I hoped it would happen this fast. My last video talking about this, I said I hope it happens quickly, and here it is happening quickly. So sometimes you get what you want, kids, but I didn't know. So what this means is they're going from the old 50 hertz servers to 60 hertz servers. Now, we got a little bit more detail than that, which I wasn't really expecting to get, but during the panel, the developer behind all this stuff, or one of the developers behind all this stuff, said they're going from A2 servers to D1 servers, or vice versa, A1 to D2, something along those lines. I think it's A1 to D2. So if you were clever enough before, you could have found out pretty easily that Ubisoft, for this game and probably most of their hosted multiplayer server games, are using Microsoft Azure web services or servers. And they are all over the place. So there's a map, which I'm going to show you, which kind of pinpoints all the locations. Now, you don't have servers in every single one of these locations because that would cost Ubisoft a fortune, and I will get to that. But you'll actually recognize some of the names. So you'll see US East and US Central and Northern Europe and Western Europe, and you'll actually recognize some of those names if you've been into that little file where you can change it. On a side note, if you're in Japan or Korea and you don't have your own server, you should be very upset, because there's at least 2 server farms in both of those countries. And I don't know, I haven't actually looked hard enough to see where exactly those servers are for that part of the world, but I know there's one in Australia. I don't remember if there's one on that side of the Asian continent. I don't know. I could look, but I'm not gonna. The reason all of this is significant is because once you know that it is Microsoft Azure servers, and now, since the dev told us they're going from A1 to D2, we can look up the specs for what those servers are and what we're going to. So, if you look at the specs for the servers that we are currently on and the ones that we are about to go to, the A-class server that we're using right now is a single core. It's got a little tiny itty bit of memory, and a small-ish amount of storage. I don't actually know what's small and medium and large for storage-wise, but you don't need a whole lot for the server code anyway, so it doesn't really matter. What matters is the number of cores you have access to and the amount of memory you got, because that's what's actually doing all the processing. But the A1 is effectively the second cheapest option that they offer, and that's what you're playing on right now. Second cheapest option. Now, that might be a normal thing for video game developers out there. I'm not really sure. I'm assuming you'd like to keep your costs down because this is a business after all, and everybody likes to make money. However, the stuff we're going to is not cheap. The servers we're going to, the D2 class of servers, get you access to 2 cores, which doesn't sound like a lot, but for a server it is. Almost sevenfold more memory, and about double the storage from everything that I was able to look up. The thing that's really crazy, though, is the price. So depending upon what pricing options they're getting, to run 1,000 of the servers that we have right now, the current live servers, to run 1,000 of them would cost somewhere near $500,000 a year. And that sounds like a lot to me. It's probably not to a big company, but it's a lot to me. However, the D2 ones that we're going to, those are going to cost, to run the same amount of servers, those would cost upwards of $3 million a year to run 1,000 of them. Now, I have no idea how many servers they are actually running. It could be less than that. It could be more than that. Because these aren't physical servers, they're virtual servers. So you can instance tons and tons and tons of these things. If you've ever seen a server rack, it'll have multiple processors and tons of RAM slots all filled to capacity. And so you can spit out a lot of virtual instances for these servers. That's a huge dollar investment, and a very good reason to buy things like the elite skins and the renown boosters and currency packs and just anything you fancy. It's a pretty good reason, because they just spent a huge chunk of that money not on hiring people, just on getting us servers. So that is a massive investment by Ubisoft, and it is a very good step in a very good direction. The lighting stuff is coming, which, I mean, they told us that a while ago, but just in case you forgot, here's what it'll look like before and after. So what's happening is they're turning down that super bright exposure when you look outside, or the super shadowy dark stuff when you look inside. This is great, because if you missed my description of the theme park map, it's really dark. They're also just reworking the textures and the lighting of the maps in general. So they also changed the sky too, but not that really. I mean, I don't know what kind of a performance impact they were using before, because I think they were using the stuff from Assassin's Creed, which had a dynamic cycle to it, so it probably took up a little bit of your processing and memory. Now they're just going to straight up HDR images, which nobody's going to look at the sky anyway, so that probably saves them quite a bit in resources comparatively. But the actual textures for the maps themselves, the buildings, and just anything on the inside of the buildings, the paneling on the walls, the furniture, anything, all of that's getting reworked, and it looks better. From the images we've seen, it's a little bit, it's not as bright, it's not as oversaturated as it was before, but maybe that'll be a good thing. Maybe it'll be easier to pick people out now. I don't know. I don't get to play on this until tomorrow, so we will see. They are also fixing all the maps for the elite skins, and Valkyrie's face is no longer going to be a square, which is cool. They're doing another wave of fixes for Hrbana's gadget. Over Season 3, we will be testing fixes and improvements that will aim to address hit registration issues and poor network conditions. We are currently testing something we are calling latency alignment, which will make 1v1 encounters feel more consistent. The result should be, emphasis on the should be that the server will more accurately mirror the reaction time of players with unstable connections, giving a fairer reaction time to their opponents. So that sounds like how they're trying to address the Piggy's advantage. Also working on adjustments to shot validation to further favor the player with more stable connections. So these things are going to get trickled in. I don't know that I've actually seen this yet. I may have gotten a chance to test this on the test server, but I couldn't tell you because they weren't really telling us. This might have been the stuff that they mentioned but didn't give details on, because they did the first round of the new server hardware test. They did say that they were working on things, but we didn't want to talk about it because we're not sure if it's going to work, and blah, 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 blah. This may be what they're talking about. That's interesting. So that might actually help a great deal. Wow. While we like the fact that defenders can challenge attackers on long distances on their approach, we believe this strategy comes with a higher risk. The possibility for 3-speed operators like Jaeger and Bandit to challenge on the longest distances while being able to relocate very quickly is currently too strong. As a consequence, Jaeger and Bandit are losing their ACOG. I was wrong. And the only new defenders that will get ACOGs will be the heavy armored ones. However, this does not mean all heavy armor operators will have the ACOGs. So if you don't have it now, you're not getting it, you fatty. So they're changing the damage fall off. That's cool. Okay, so DMRs, light machine guns, and assault rifles, everybody's damage fall off is going to start at 25 meters and end at either 35 or 40 meters. The assault rifles being the 35. So machine guns is going to start at 18 meters. That's close. And stop at 28. Same thing for machine pistols, so the SMG-11 falls into that category. So does the bearing 9. And then pistols, it's 12 and 22. But if you're using your pistol, unless you're trolling, you're within 12 meters, so that's not a big deal. The drone thing is happening, so you're going to get 2 drones, and you're going to get to keep them. So if you throw your first drone out and you want to park it somewhere, you can now throw out your second drone, and it won't kill your first one. So if you want to park one at your favorite little run out spot and make sure nobody runs out on you, and you want to use a second drone to actually scout out the objective or wherever it is you're going, you can do that now. And if the defenders kill your first drone, you can always go grab your second one and just drive it back to wherever you want it to be. Okay, non-replicated debris. There are often times when there is a piece of debris that can be viewed by one player and not the other. This will no longer block sight lines when shooting, and it will no longer block the deploy of gadgets either. Well, thank you, because that's been bugging me since day one. And they buffed the shit out of bandits batteries. So you can now bandit trick Hibana pellets while they fuse, like while they're doing their actual thing, because before you had to catch it prior to them being ignited, I guess, or it wouldn't work. The bandit trick didn't work. Now you can do that in the middle of it, so you can bandit trick the living daylights out of Hibana. And just to make it better, do you remember when bandits batteries one-shot everything that rolled through it? So all of the drones, they take one hit of damage and they were dead. They're reverting back to that. They changed it, I don't know when, not too long ago, to like 2 or 3 hits, so you could drive your drone into it, and then if you took a hit, you knew you needed to jump and get out of it. Now that first hit, and it's Udensky. So, wow, that's a huge buff. IQ can now detect Echo's arm pads. Sweet. There you go, guys. That is the update for today. New servers coming with Blood Orchid. A massive, massive list of bug fixes. A whole bunch of stuff that I did not know that they were going to do, like the buff to Bandit's battery and all that nice fun stuff. Lots to look forward to. I'm really excited to see some of this in action. I really, really want everybody to be able to try the 60 Hz servers, because I want to see what happens to those things under a serious load. So I am looking forward to this. We will be live tomorrow as soon as I can with Operation Blood Orchid. But until then, thank you for joining me, and I will see you in the next video.